At speeds beyond 80 miles an hour, the California cops jail you, so I keep it down in the 70s. Tobin used to drive 100 till his Datsun exploded in flames on the freeway out by Running Springs. Tobin was a supreme artist, alive in a way the rest of us were not. But time seemed too short for Tobin, who always lived and climbed like he had days or perhaps minutes before the curtain fell. It came as no surprise when he perished attempting to solo the north face of Mount Alberta in winter. I charged on towards Joshua Tree National Monument, where 2 weeks before, another pal had decked while soloing. I inspected the base of the route, wincing at the grisly bloodstains, the tufts of matted hair. Soloing is unforgiving, but okay, I think. You just had to be realistic, and could never stove to peer pressure or ego. Soul climbing and all that jazz. At 85 miles an hour, Joshua Tree comes quickly, but the start night drags. The morning sun peered over the flat horizon, gilding the rocks, spotting the desert carpet. The biggest stones are little more than 150 feet high. Right after breakfast, I run into John Bachar, widely considered the world's foremost free climber. For several years, he's traveled widely, mostly in his old VW van, chasing the sun in the hardest routes on the planet. Most all climbs are easy for Bachar. He has to make his own difficulties, and usually does so by doing away with a rope. He dominates the cliff with his grace and confidence, never gets rattled, never thrashes, and you know that if he ever gets killed climbing, it will be a gross transgression of all taste and you'll curse God for the rest of your life, on aesthetic, not moral grounds. Bachar has been out of Joshua Tree for several months, and his soloing feats astonished everybody. It is wintertime when college checks my climbing to weekends, so my motivation is there, but my fitness is not. Straight away, Bachar suggests a half-dome day. Yosemite's half-dome is 2,000 feet high, call it 20 rope lengths, so we'll have to climb 20 pitches or 20 climbs to put in our half-dome day. Bachar laces up his boots and cinches the sling on his chalk bag. Ready? Only then do I realize he means to climb all 2,000 feet solo, without a rope. To save face, I agree, thinking, well, if he suggests something too crazy, I'll just draw the line. I was the first to start soloing out of Josh anyhow. We cast off on vertical rock, twisting feet and jamming hands into bulging cracks, smearing the toes of our skin-tight boots on the tenuous warts and wrinkles, muscling over roofs on bulbous holds, palming off rough rock and marveling at it all. A curious little voice occasionally asked me how good a flexing quarter-inch hold could be. If you're solid, you set curled fingers or pointed toes on that quarter-incher and push or pull perfunctorily. And I'm solid. After 3 hours, we've disposed of a dozen pitches and felt invincible. We upped the ante to stiff 510, the threshold of expert terrain. We slow, but by early afternoon we've climbed 20 pitches. The half-dome day is history. As a finale, Bachar suggests we solo 511, an exciting drill even for Bachar, for back then the 511 grade moves us within a single notch of the technical limit. I was already hosed from racing up 20 different climbs in a few hours, having cruised the last half dozen on rhythm and momentum. Regardless, I follow Bachar over to Intersection Rock, the communal hang for local climbers and the site for Bachar's final solo. Bachar wastes no time and no words. Scores of milling climbers freeze when he starts up, climbing with flawless precision, plugging his fingers in the shallow pockets of the 105-degree wall, one move flowing into the next, much as pieces of a puzzle Matt fits together. I scrutinize his moves, making mental notes on the intricate sequence. After 30 feet he pauses, directly beneath the crux bulge. Splaying his left foot out on a slanting edge, he pinches a tiny flute and pulls through to a giant bucket hold. Then he hikes the last 100 feet of vertical rock like it's a staircase. A few seconds later he peers over the lip and flashes that sly, candid snicker, awaiting my reply. I am booted up and covered in chalk, facing a notorious climb which just now in 1974 is rarely done, even with a rope. 50 hungry eyes give me the once-over, as if to say, well? That little voice says, no problem, and I believe it. I draw several deep breaths. I don't consider the consequences, only the moves. I start up. A body length of easy stuff, then those pockets, which I finger adroitly before pulling hard. This first bit passes quickly. Everything is clicking along, severe but steady, and I glide into bone-crushing altitude before I can reckon. Then, as I splay my foot out onto the slanting edge, the chilling realization comes that in my haste, I bungled the sequence, that my hands are crossed up and too low on that tiny flute that I'm pinching with waning power. My foot starts vibrating, and I'm instantly desperate, wondering if and when my body will freeze and plummet. I can't possibly downclimb a single move. My only escape is straight up. I glance down beneath my legs. My gut churns at the thought of a freefall onto the boulders, of climbers later cringing at the red stains and tufts of hair. They look up and say, "Yeah, he popped from way up there." A montage of black images flood my brain. That little voice is bellowing, "Do something, fast!" My breathing is frenzied, while my arms, gassed from the previous 2,000 feet of climbing, feel like concrete. Pinching that little flute, I suck my feet up so as to extend my hand and jam my hand into the bottoming crack above. But I've set up too low on that flute, and the only part of the crack I can reach is too shallow, except but a third of my hand. I'm stuck, terrified, my whole life focused down to a single move. Shamefully, I understand the only blasphemy. To willfully jeopardize my own life, which I have done, and it sickens me. Then everything slows, as though preservation instincts have kicked my mind into hypergear. In a heartbeat, I realize my desire to live, not die. But my regrets cannot alter my situation. Arms shot, legs wobbling, head on fire. Then fear burns itself up, leaving me hollow and mortified. To concede, to quit, would be easy. The little voice calmly says, "At least go out trying." I hear that, and punch my hand deeper into the bottoming crack. If I can only execute this one unlikely move, I'll get an in-cut jug and can rest on it, jungle gym style, before the final push to the top. I'm afraid to eyeball my crimped hand, scarcely jammed in the bottoming crack. It must hold my 205 pounds on an overhanging wall with scant footholds, and this seems ludicrous, impossible. My body has jittered here for close to a minute, forever. My jammed hand says, "No way," but that little voice says, "Might as well try it." I pull up slowly. My left foot still pasted to that sloping edge, and that big bucket is right there. I almost have it. I do. Simultaneously, my right hand rips from the crack and my weight shock loads onto my enfeebled left arm. Adrenaline powers me atop that thank God bucket where I try and suck my chest to the wall, get my weight over my feet. But it's too steep to cop a meaningful rest, so I push on, shaking horribly, dancing black dots flecking my vision, glad only that the terrain, though vertical, is casual compared to below. Still, it takes an age to claw up to the last 100 feet and onto the summit. "Looked a little shaky," laughed Bachar, flashing that candid snicker. I wanted to slap it right off his face. That night I drove into town and got a bottle. The next day, while Bachar went for an El Cap day, 3,000 feet, solo, of course, I wandered through dark desert corridors, scouting for turtles, making garlands from wildflowers, staring up at the titanic sky, doing all those things a person does on borrowed time. Postscript. On July 5th, 2009, John Bachar died while free soloing on the dike wall near his home in Mammoth Lakes, California. He was 52 years old. An iconic rock climber and a legend in the world of adventure sports. 31 years before, I wrote that if John ever got killed climbing, I would curse God for the rest of my life on aesthetic, not moral grounds. Now, I'm not so sure I want to curse God or anyone for the rest of my life. Though I'm saddened to have to live it knowing John Bachar is not out there somewhere, tangling with old man gravity. Maybe he still is. He's just higher than I can see from here.